Good evening. The time is now 7 o'clock and I'd like to start this meeting. I am Councillor Green and I will chair the subcommittee for this meeting. I would like to introduce the members of the subcommittee along with me this evening. On my left, I have Councillor Fish, and on my right, I have Councillor Jones. Also in attendance are the Licensing Officer, Paul Adams, Legal Advisor, Lois Bland, and Godwin Manguise, and Clerk, Emma Trencher. We also have quite a few people in the audience in the gallery. Can I please ask everyone to introduce themselves? Would the applicant's legal representative introduce himself first, please?
Yes, good afternoon or good evening. I'm David Datt, I'm counsel for the applicant.
And would the applicant please be able to introduce himself, please?
Introduce yourself, both of you.
Hi, my name is Cemil Parlak Yıldız,
And introduce your wife.
and her name is Dilan Parlak Yıldız.
Thank you. We can't. Can you mute the mic on, please? Thank you.
My name is Dilan.
My name is Dilan Parlak Yıldız.
Can you hear now?
Say your name.
My name is Dilan Parlak Yıldız. Thank you.
Thank you. And could the residents who are speaking this evening, could you introduce yourself?
My name's Chris Hall, resident of Fleming Road.
My name is Razvan Praskivu. I live on 11 Fleming Road.
Thank you. And would the councillors speaking this evening please introduce themselves?
I'm Councillor Sushanik, Councillor in South Trafford.
I'm Councillor Valerie Morris-Cook.
Thank you all. As we continue, I would like to remind everyone present that this meeting is being live streamed to the council's website. Before we start, I would like to explain the process of the hearing. Firstly, the licensing officer will present their report. Following this, members and all relevant parties will have the opportunity to ask any questions. Then each party will be given the opportunity to give their case. This is also followed by questions from members and all parties. Once everyone has presented their case, all parties will have time to give a closing summary, with the licence holder having the final say. The subcommittee will then retire to consider its decision and will be accompanied by the clerk and the legal advisor. We will then return with our decision. Does anyone have any questions? No? Thank you. Item 1 on the agenda is apologies. I have not received any apologies this evening. Item 2 on the agenda is urgent business. I have not been advised of any items of urgent business. Item 3 on the agenda is declarations of interest. Can I invite members of the subcommittee to declare any interests?
No interest.
Thank you.
I have no interest either.
And same here. Could the councillors in the making representation please, do you have any declarations of interest?
Well, I am the local councillor for South Trafford Ward.
Thank you.
I have no interest to declare.
Thank you. No problem. Item 4 on the agenda, determination of an application for a new premises licence. Do any of the parties have any requests, in particular permission for another person to appear other than specified for their advance notice, for permission to cross-examine or any other requests?
Chair, I will be speaking on behalf of the company for the applicant. Yeah, sorry, I'm looking at you and the mic's there, sorry. I will be speaking on behalf of the applicant company, and obviously I don't intend at the moment to make any requests for asking of questions at this stage, but obviously I reserve that right.
Okay, that is fine, thank you. I would now like to ask the licensing officer to present the factual report.
Thank you, Chair. This is an application for a new premises licence for Cara Lounge and Grill, Fleming Road, Chafford 100, which has been submitted on behalf of 27 Fleming Limited. The application was received on the 12th of September 2024, and the application is to authorise some regulated entertainment, including performances of dance, live music and recorded music, also for late night refreshment and the supply of alcohol for consumption on and off the premises. And that is from Sunday to Thursday, 11 a.m. until midnight, and then on a Friday and Saturday, 11 a.m. until 1 a.m. There's also some additional hours have been requested for all activities until 2 a.m. on Christmas Eve, Boxing Day, and any day immediately preceding the bank holiday. Activities would be authorised from the end of the permitted hours New Year's Eve until the start of the permitted hours the following day. A copy of the full application and associated documentation is attached at the agenda as Appendix 1, including a location map, and some photographs are attached at Appendix 2. The application has been consulted upon in accordance with the provisions of the Licensing Act, and during that consultation period, representations were received from 7 local residents and 4 local councillors, all as other persons. All of their representations are attached to Appendix 3. As I say, the number of them are here tonight. The people seated behind those that are wishing to speak have all made representation, but have indicated they don't particularly want to speak at the stage of their hearing. We've also received a representation from Thurrock Council's Planning Department as a responsible authority, and a copy of their representation is attached to Appendix 4. But the Planning Department did indicate they wouldn't be attending this evening. 2.5 of your reports, there are a number of conditions that, should the licence be granted, would be applied, which has been taken from the applicant's operating schedule. So they would be applied unless you feel reason to remove or change or amend any of those. Obviously, the options that are open to the committee is that you can grant the applications applied for, you can grant the application subject to such conditions that are necessary and proportionate to promote the licence and objectives, or you could refuse the application. I think that's probably all I need to say at this point. Obviously, there may be questions, but if you've got any questions for me, I'll be happy to answer any of those. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Paul. Do any members on this panel have any questions of the licensing officer?
Yes, please, Chair.
Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to know, when it says supply alcohol on and off the premises, what does that actually mean, Paul? First of all, thank you.
Yeah, just for clarification, obviously for consumption on the premises, so that they can actually consume the alcohol on the premises in an open vessel to drink that. It also allows them to take the alcohol away as an off-licence would. So, like as in a supermarket, you buy alcohol to consume away from the premises, off the premises. So they can both sell the alcohol for consumption on the premises and for people to take, drink home with them after the event.
Paul, how long is this, the present applicant, how long have they been in this premises?
I think that's probably something that the applicant can better ask. From my knowledge, it's a good couple of years, but I'm sure they can give you the precise timings, but yeah, a couple of years.
So before this, it was a restaurant since 2002, I believe. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a restaurant as far back as I can see. Our records have sort of shown. There was a transfer. It was an Oriental restaurant, and there was a transfer to the current owners in the name of a different company a few years ago. And obviously, there's been an issue with the existing license that previously was held there. That's why they're applying for a new license.
Councillor Fish.
Is the licence for this establishment the same as the one that was before?
It's similar, albeit it is for shorter hours. I think the previous licence was a 2 a.m. licence, whereas this licence was 2 o'clock in the morning. I have got the full details. I think the details have been circulated to everybody, and I'm sure the applicant will take you through that. But it is for less hours than the previous licence was, by at least an hour.
Thank you. Paul, the previous licence, did we get any complaints like we've had for the new licence?
I'm certainly not aware of any complaints in relation to the licence as previous was, no, in relation to licensing.
And the current licence, have you actually received complaints?
Again, I'm not aware of any complaints since in recent months in relation to the operation of the premises.
Councillor Morris Cook.
Are we allowed to ask questions?
Yes, we'll get to that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Once,
Yeah.
yeah, I'd like.
Go on.
And also, Chair, we get a chance to come back to Paul if there's anything there that we may feel that we can, as time goes on. We okay to ask Paul later on?
I'm
Yeah.
happy
Or
to
is it-
bring Paul in if we need
Right,
his
okay, thank you.
expert knowledge on
Yeah.
any chosen subject. Okay. Does any of the residents and councillors in attendance have any questions of Paul? Councillor Morris Cook.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm a bit surprised by what you've just said. Do you know why the restaurant is not opening to its current hours in its current licence? Because I believe it closes at 11, I think, at the moment. You said it had a licence to 2 a.m.
Yeah, I mean, I can give you some history to the premises if that would assist everybody in relation to that. So the premises was previously licensed for administrative reasons. That license lapsed.
Paul, can you hold on just one moment, please? Go ahead, Paul.
So the license I referred to that was until 2 a.m. Lapsed because of administrative reasons. On discovery that the license has been lapsed, an application was put in for a basic 11 p.m. alcohol license, which the premises has been running on since then. This is a new application for an extended license for a better term, which includes regulated entertainment, which includes the sale of alcohol, but for a later time from 11 p.m. So the original license, and the license that was transferred from the Oriental, was a sort of 2 a.m. license. That license lapsed, as I said, for administrative reasons, and they're currently trading on just an 11 p.m. license for the sale of alcohol, and this is a new application for an extended license to that license.
Thank you, Paul. Can Councillor Shinnock?
Yeah, I'd just like to say that I have sent in several complaints to member services regarding Cara Restaurant. So if you'd like to go back to member services, you could find that out.
Would you like to come in, sir?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm conscious that the way we are starting the proceedings, if the councillor wants to refer to any previous material that she has submitted to member services, it should have been included in her original representation, because I think that would be unfair for me to have to address. I did read and I did look at the planning committee where similar comments were made, I think, and that was regarding the block of flats and car parking. So I think there were issues around planning and car parking, not antisocial behaviour. But however, if there are any representations made by councillors, it should only be limited to what they have written in their representations, and it shouldn't be amplified any more than that. So in relation to your Councillor Chairman, in relation to the questions earlier on, I wondered whether I could assist you just slightly. I think Pan Asia, or the restaurant that was there previously, I did the licence for that, I think, in 2008, 2009, because I used to work for Palmer's, and you know Palmer's is just next door. But I used to work for Palmer's in Basildon, so I remember doing the licence then. And I did the licence for 2 a.m. with an additional 1 hour on notable days. So the previous licence, which has lapsed through technical reasons, no other reasons, was for 2 o'clock, plus with an additional hour for bank holidays and notable days. So I thought I would just clarify that position, and I wondered when you are able, whether you could call me in, because I'd like to ask a couple of questions to Mr. Adams when you call me, because I have a couple of questions for him.
Well, absolutely, no problem. Does any more of the councillors or the representatives at the back have any questions of Mr. Adams? I'm just going to let Councillor Jones come in. Oh, sorry. I'm now going to let Councillor Jones come in.
Paul, just to clarify, you said that when was this error, or when did this last term, should we say, of 2 a.m. elapse? When did that stop? And then it reverted to a 11 p.m. finish. And so how long ago was that? You know, a little bit of the history of that, please.
Yeah, I do apologise. Elizabeth Cox was the officer that was going to be presented tonight. She's gone home ill this afternoon, so she would have had all of this information at her fingertips. Again, I'm sure the applicant can give us the exact details, but it was sort of 3 months ago, something like that, that we realised that the licence had lapsed due to a technical or administrative issue with the licence.
Just to come back, so up to then, what was the finishing time it was working at?
It was, I've got a copy of the old licence in front of me, and it was 2 a.m. every day, other than a Sunday when it finished at midnight, and that was for the regulated entertainment and the sale of alcohol. I'm just paging down. Late night refreshment was 11:30. Alcohol finished on a Sunday at 11, but 1 o'clock for the rest of the week. That's the hours that the premises is licensed for, or was licensed for. Doesn't mean that they were operating to those hours during that time. I'll make that clear. But that's what they had a license for, plus the additional hours at special bank holidays and bits and pieces.
Thank you, Councillor Jones, and thank you, Paul, for that response. Can I now bring in the applicant's representative? Do you have any questions of the Paul as the licensing officer?
Yes, please. Mr. Adams, could I just clarify, please, in relation to the public and the responsible authorities consultation, can you just perhaps clarify for everyone present that the licensing authority, public health, environmental health, the police service, were all consulted in relation to this application, and that they raised no objections, and that the licensing committee members need to take that also into account, that they've been consulted?
Yeah, no, that's correct. As I said, no other responsible authorities have made representation, but they were all consulted with in accordance with the legislation.
Thank you, sir. I'm now going to move on. I would now like to ask and go through the representatives today. So could I ask Councillor Maurice Cook, would you like to start, please?
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you, Chair. I really would like to speak against the proposed licence application on several grounds. I do believe that there is currently public nuisance, which from my view is parking. Any time that you go past the restaurant, and I do go past there several times a day, from lunchtime through, there are cars everywhere. And I do believe, unlike obviously the representation for the restaurant, that is antisocial because of the parking. If you live next door or opposite, you have no opportunity of being able to park where you should be parking. If I was actually putting an application in for the licence, I would have actually got my own house in order first and made sure that there was good behaviour from the people that are going to the restaurant. And there's nothing wrong with having a successful restaurant. It's something to be valued, because I think it's a good thing. However, I would make sure that people that were coming to my restaurant were parking with residents in mind, and making sure that if the car park, and I know they've had an extension, was full, that I would probably put them up to the station car park. I do have concerns about the amount of littering that will come from people that are leaving the restaurant. I think, you know, we talk about the police and the environmental health haven't had any concerns about it. They actually don't live next door or opposite this restaurant. So they aren't being disturbed by people coming out. And you can't expect people to come out and be totally silent when they leave a restaurant, because they're quite happy, they're saying goodbye to their friends, they're getting into cars, closing the car doors. And I do believe that we should be taking this into consideration, because I do believe it does represent public harm to people that live next door and opposite. You know, previously, when the restaurant was under previous management, you never really had the issues of parking or noise raised. Or when you went past, you could see it as you drive past. I also probably should have asked the question, where you're talking about the licence being asked for off sales, was Tesco's actually involved in the consultation? Because if you're having off sales, I'm sure that Tesco's would be completely challenging that, because that would be taking business away from them. I do believe that, you know, we do need to look, and I do not understand why the restaurant is successful as it is, why they want to extend to 2 o'clock in the morning on obviously specific dates, bank holidays, Christmas Eve. I mean, crikey, you know, is anybody going to get any sleep in that area? You know, let's just be comfortable for what we currently have. Rather than trying to extend it to 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. I just think it's totally unreasonable, and I just don't think they've taken into consideration people that live next to it or opposite.
Thank you, Councillor Maurice Cook. I saw you as indicating. I'm just going to go through all of the representatives and come to you afterwards. You will get a chance.
Well, it's a legal point I wanted to raise.
Okay, go on.
So if I can, as a matter of law, there can be the representation of the councillors at page 47, as I understand it, and that the councillor only raises those points which are at page 47. There are matters raised regarding environmental health, patrons dispersing. There's matters raised about off-sales and Tesco's. Need, not and relevance, and other matters. And all what I'd say as chair is that I'd ask if you would be able to intervene at the appropriate time if people go off their representation, that they're brought back, because it is a matter of law. There should be no new representations made, because we would then not have a fair hearing.
Okay, and I will ask for that to be striked out of the record, and that all representations are kept within line. Would you like to come back in?
I would just like to say the reason I spoke about the police and environment is actually because the solicitor brought it up. So I should be able to, in this open environment, have a right to reply against that.
Thank you. Councillor Shinnock.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to the committee for allowing me the opportunity to address this matter. I speak today on behalf of the residents of Fleming Road, who are deeply concerned about the proposed extension of opening hours for Cara Restaurant. I want to especially highlight the challenges faced by residents directly across from this establishment, particularly those whose health, well-being are already under sufficient strain. Many residents have expressed their frustration and distress over the late night disturbances. Noise from loud music, shouting and vehicle activity has disturbed their ability to rest and recover, a basic need that should be assured for all of us in our own homes. We are not dealing with noise, we are not only dealing with noise, the constant presence of late night behaviour has led to littering, foul odours and even trespassing, with cars
Councillor
using
Shinnock.
residents' driveways as a pick-up and drop-off points.
Councillor Shinnock, can we just remain to what you've done representation for? You didn't, I'm afraid. Yeah. Go on.
Could I just make a comment? I think, I know Councillor Shinnock is talking on behalf of a number of people that are here, but that don't necessarily want to public speak. I think everything she's covering is contained in the representation of other residents here. You know, if needs be, obviously the other residents can speak, but we do generally encourage a few people to talk on behalf of everybody. I'm just looking at Mr. Dadds to see whether he's content for us to allow, you know, Councillor Shinnock to, you know, amplify the things that have already been spoken to by residents. Obviously not introduce anything new. I would completely agree with that. But I just looking at Mr. Dadds whether that would help the process rather than everybody have to sort of say the same thing.
Chair and councillors, I think that's a very useful way forward, but what we have to do so that I am able to respond is know that that is happening, because at the moment I understood it as she was talking to her representation. If she can identify who is she speaking on behalf of, I can make a note, then I will cross-reference both those representations, because I have them all summarised here, so I can at least then make sure that there's nothing new being added. So I'm quite happy to be practical about it, but obviously I'm looking at page 49, and that's why I'm looking at, and that's why you intervene too. So I think it is important. I think the council also said that she is speaking to a note that she has sent in. Now, if she could draw us to the page number, the document that she's referring to, I can then look at it and follow along with her. But if it's not in the papers, then it should not be included.
Okay.
I
No, let me speak, Ms. Councillor Shinnock. I will bring you back in, I promise. Since taking chair of this licensing committee, it was my intention to keep this as an open and transparent committee. And I do feel that this needs to continue under my chairship. And this is not going in the direction, Mr. Dadds. If it is written in this document and in these communications, I'm going to allow it to continue as long as there is some sort of representation, and the majority of that is around noise and antisocial behaviour. If that continues with this, I will allow it to continue But if you do feel it's going the wrong direction, please let me know and we'll do that. But this committee must be open, transparent to the public, and I will not allow it to go any other way.
Mr. Chairman, I agree entirely with what you said. So I don't know. I don't know whether I've upset you in any way. I've said exactly that, but also as a committee and as the chairman, and you've got your legal advisor behind you, is that representations have to be made in 28 days. You can amplify the representation. If a councillor is speaking on behalf of other people, there should have been prior notification of that. I should have been told in advance. I should know who he's speaking and on what behalf and on whose behalf they're speaking. I should also be told what page numbers that is, so that I can then follow, and that is as a matter of law. In relation to the overarching principle of letting the public speak, there's also another overarching principle of justice and fairness, and we as the applicant are entitled to a fair hearing. Your sort of semi-quasi-judicial or an administrative function, so that means that when we are having a hearing, it should be fair to everyone. And all I'm asking for is that, for example, I was told that this councillor is speaking at page 49, and obviously we went off subject. Mr. Adams has indicated that the councillor may be speaking on behalf of others, and I've just said, as long as they can be identified, I'll go with it. So I am trying to be helpful, but also I have to protect my client to make sure that they're getting a fair hearing. So I think we're on the same lines, but I think I have a job to do too, and you have a job to do, and we need to work together on it.
While I agree with you with Councillor Morris-Cook as the not the representative of Chafford and South Chafford, I don't disagree. I disagree with you with Councillor Shinnock. She is the elected representative for South Chafford. She has, as long as I don't see, if you can refer to a page where maybe she's talking a resident, I don't see that as an issue.
As a matter of law, you are wrong, Mr. Chairman, and I think you might need to adjourn to get some legal advice. If someone is a local councillor, of course they represent their ward and they're elected, but as a matter of law, they have to make a representation in 28 days, and they can amplify what they've written but can't add anything new. That's as a matter of law. If the councillor wants to represent a member of the public who has written in 28 days, then they have to notify the council within 5 working days before the hearing to say that they are representing or speaking on behalf of others. I don't object to that because I don't need the 5 days. I'm happy for that to happen. But I don't think I'm being unreasonable. But it's not a free-for-all. I have to make sure I know who the councillor is speaking on behalf of. And I think I need an adjournment for that exercise to happen, because what is happening is I'm getting the impression that you're not happy with me and that somehow it's my fault, and it's not my fault. I'm just trying to navigate your process. So I think we need a short adjournment so I know who the councillor is representing, so I can make my notes and prepare myself for this hearing so it's fair.
Just give it a moment. Let's bring this back in line. I'm the chair of this committee. I decide if there's an adjournment. I will do an adjournment for 1 minute. Can we please take us out of session for 1 minute? But that is all. And if you're not here, we will continue. For a quick 30 seconds, I'm going to ask that we take a 10-minute break to allow this to happen. Councillor Shinnock, Councillor Morris-Cook and the representatives, everyone. If you're going to refer to something in the representation, please refer to it. So if it's on page 51 and you want to refer to it, please do so. We will then arrange for that. Then you have to refer to page 51, and that will be that, and then that will keep the representative and everything in line. Is that okay with you? And may I just please add, I have nothing personal against you. I just want, this is my chair thing. I want everything fair and honest and practical. So my decision is to take 10 minutes so everyone can get their paperwork in line, and then we'll come back. Is that okay?
Chair, I agree with you entirely, and you are the chairman, but likewise, as I say, we have two different jobs,
Yeah.
so I'm not disrespecting you.
Okay.
I respect you, but I'm just trying to do my job too.
Okay, I'm just going to ask and allow Councillor Shinnick, and then we're going to take a 10-minute break.
Right, I'd just like to state that I submitted my letter in on Monday, which was the closing date for this, and I hadn't had any response back to say anything what I'm saying is untoward.
And I will take that away, and I will give you an answer after we've taken the 10-minute break.
Can I just come in?
Councillor Morris-Kirk.
Yeah, I've just looked at what I actually sent in. The only thing I didn't put in my provision was littering, which I hadn't mentioned. So I'm happy for the part where I mentioned littering to be taken out, and I'm happy for the part about off sales to be taken out. Everything else that I said, I wish to stay, because I can refer to actually the statement that I sent in. And I don't know, actually, because I haven't got it. I've just got what I actually sent in, which says, I would like to challenge the current licence provision request for Cara Lounge, as there's a great deal of unrest with the residents due to the parking of vehicles which block in residence, loud noise from the premises after hours, the number of cars which appear to be parked with no thought.
Councillor Morris-Kirk, let's leave it there. I'm now going to put us in 10-minute break, as I previously said, and let's all get ourselves in order. So, Emma, put us into break, please. Thank you. To go? Great. So, following the break, I've spoken to the legal team here at Thurrock Council, and can we please keep it to what you have wrote?
Everything I've said is on the piece of paper
Councillor
what I
Shinnick,
sent in.
please. Can we just keep it in line with we talk, and I will allow everybody sitting over there who has made an representation, you'll all be allowed to speak. Every single one of you. So, Paul, would you like to?
I just want to apologise. I mean, Councillor Shinnick did send a copy of her speech in. For whatever reason, we haven't picked it up and we haven't passed it on to everybody. However, it's a scripted speech, so she can talk verbally. It's only written documentation that can't be presented at the hearing, as long as she's only amplifying what she said, or if she's doing that on behalf of other people. So
Okay.
just wanted to make that clear.
Go ahead.
Chair, in relation to documents that have come in late, unless it's, even if it came in on Monday, it can only be an amplification of what was previously written. In addition to that, because it hasn't been circulated, if it's circulated now, I'm quite happy to have a look. And obviously you'll need the consent of all parties present. But as Mr. Adams has said, and your legal advisor will say, that as long as it's only an application what is written, then that's not a problem. As I understand it, and it might assist, I've been told by your licensing officer that the councillors, and it would be good if they can identify which councillor it is, but are representing resident at page 63 and resident at page 65. And if that's what they're doing, that's fine. At least I know, because obviously I've just looked at the manuscript note, because obviously I've got a dictation note, and that the rereading back what the councillor said, she said she was representing all the residents, and obviously that's factually incorrect. It's only representing those two residents tonight at the hearing. Thank you.
Go on, Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Chair. In that case, I would like to, I think it'd be advisable if them residents are here that's made them statements, that if they were here and they would like to, then they read them out. Then that way, then if the council's only representing whoever you consider they're representing, the two, but the other people then read out what they've got to say in their...
Thank you, Councillor Jones. I don't like the way this committee is going. Can I remind all, I am the chair of this committee and I am going to set down what we are going to be doing. Councillor Shinnock, are you representing and who are you representing, please?
I'm representing the residents of South Trafford Ward, and I didn't know I had to state residents' names because I think you don't have to do that under PGR.
I agree with you.
Okay, so can I carry on with what I've got to say, or do you want the residents to carry on speaking?
Can I remind you, sir, I understand you've got a job to do. We are not going to get this done this evening if you keep every 5 seconds interrupting. Let's see what Councillor Shinnock wants to say, and then I'll bring you in.
Well, Chair, could I just, as a matter of law, and you've got a lawyer here, at the end of the day, this is not my problem, as it were. You have a procedure and you have a statute guidance of rules. So it's the law. I'm not telling you to do anything other than to follow the law, the rule of law. In relation to the councillor, she said she represents residents of South Chafford Ward, but that's not what I've been told. Your officer has said that the councillors represent the resident living at 7 Fleming Road and 3 Fleming Road. That is it. And those representations at page 63 and 65, that is it. So I can follow. That's the rule, sir. So I don't know if you can speak to your legal advisor. And I will note that I'm here to do a job, but also to make sure we follow the law. Now, if you want to stop me speaking, you can stop me at any time. But I'd ask that we follow the law and that the councillor, if they are speaking, can speak to any resident that they want if they have been asked by that resident to speak on their behalf. But I have to be told in advance which residents they are speaking on behalf of, which is fair.
Paul, did you want to come in?
Just clarification around what I'd said. Obviously, when I spoke with the 2 residents at the back tonight, when they first arrived, they did indicate to me that they were here. They were hoping that the councillor would speak on their behalf and they wouldn't have to say anything. I think that's correct from my understanding of that. Obviously, Councillor Shinnock's representation, she talks about lots of complaints, etc. from Cara, but who she's representing in her role as ward councillor, I don't know. But what I can say is that the 2 residents at the back there who have made representations did say that Councillor Shinnock would be speaking to, on their behalf effectively. So, as I said before, we do encourage, not everyone to stand up and say the same thing. If 2 or 3 of the residents can summarise what's been said, that's absolutely fine. But obviously, they can't stray from the representations that are there already.
Councillor Shinnock, if you are representing the representative on page 54, please, no, I'm just using that as an example, sorry. Before you give that your part of the speech, please let us know. And if it's 56, 61, 70, please do it that way.
Right, it's on page 49.
Thank you. And just go through it that way.
Right, also there's points on page 44, 41 and 45, what I brought up. Do you want me to finish?
Of course you can. Cool.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Right, I've got to where I drop off points. These disturbances would only be worsened by the proposed 1 a.m. closing time and also the possibility of 2 a.m. closing time New Year's Eve. Furthermore, the residents have raised valid questions regarding the suitability of the location of such an establishment, especially in a quiet residential neighbourhood. That transformation of this restaurant into a nightclub environment is creating an atmosphere that simply does not belong in a community setting. I ask the committee to consider the residents are not opposed to local businesses, but deserve a respectful environment where they have the right to peace in their own homes is protected. Denying this application would help uphold the right. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Councillor Shinnock. Can I ask Chris Hall to give his representation? Thank you.
So, thank you, Chair. I'd like to keep my point brief, as I think we've been invited to an open discussion and not a legal representation as residents. My points are on page 46 and 47 with my letter that I've sent in. In a way, I am in agreement that the CARA should have some form of licensing granted. The fact that it should open till 11 o'clock at night, it's a restaurant, it should be expected that it is able to sell alcohol on or off premises. It always has been a restaurant throughout its duration that I've lived there in 14 years. All of my points are in my letter that I've sent in. My only issue, and I think the issue of most of the actual residents industry, is about extending opening hours. I think that realistically being open in the middle of a residential street past 11 p.m. is not reasonable on any day of the week. All of these points are in my letter. I just think that there is an element here of, we can argue that we want to deny licensing to a restaurant. I don't think that that's realistic for a business. I don't think it's realistic from residents' point of view that for the last 14 years that I've lived here at Fleming Road, the restaurant has always existed and it should coexist in its environment. But its environment is that in the middle of a densely populated residential street. If it was located in a commercial basis, somewhere like Lakeside, it would be perfectly acceptable to be open at the hours that the rest of the establishments are. And I think there's some valid points here for denying opening hours, but I see there shouldn't be anything beyond 11 p.m. Other than that, I don't really have much else to add. I think what we're looking at is quite straightforward, and it doesn't really need to be overly complicated.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. Is it Rasmin? Thank you.
I live on 11 Road. My application was on page 55. I'm a construction worker. I don't have I have a fear to speak in front of people, but because this case really affects us, me and my family, I try to say some words because this is very important for us. We have a family and we have 2 kids, and our kids cannot get the rest which they need to take, because one of the kids have 2 years and the other kid is 12 years old who go to Harris Academy and is top 5 kids in the school, and we try to do a good education for him. But he cannot take, the good rest because of Cara, because all the nights are very noisy. People just open the cars and they get the music loud. Sometimes they park in the front of our houses. I apologize because my voice is, like I said, I'm just a construction worker. I don't speak too often in front of people. I try to say with my own words, and because this is very important, that's why I try to say my point of view. Yes, the restaurant have a history and it was always there, but before there was a Chinese restaurant and there was no problems because they didn't build expansion. The restaurant was not so big. It was not a car park there. The client was walking there. The approach of the restaurant was different. You know, they come. There is a new approach. There is a different style. You know, like the clients are different. They act different. They don't care about the neighbors. They don't have any respect for the neighbors. They just open the cars and they turn the music loud, you know, and sometimes they cross the street and they spend more time after the restaurant is closed, you know. And this happened, you know, on a weekly basis. This is our life. It's not just an experience or it's happened only once. It happens every day for us, you know. Also the smell, it's a nightmare. We cannot put our clothes in the yard, you know, because our clothes smell as the food, you know. And just I invite you to come one day when it's full program and try to breathe outside the restaurant to see how the air is there. We do so much effort to be green, but the air there is not breathable. Just I invite you to come one day to see how it is, you know. I apologize if I sound offensive. I just try to tell my point of view, you know, and try to find my word, you know, and thank you for giving me this opportunity, you know. Like I said, I don't speak in front of people, but because this is important for me, I wanted to come with Chris and to tell my point of view, you know, because me and my family is very important, and we don't have money to change the house, you know. We lived there with the restaurant before, and now because Cara came in, we don't want to change the house. We want to live with Cara, but they to have the respect for the neighbors. This is all we want, you know. We don't want like they to stop. They can continue, but we need to respect each other, you know, like they to consider the neighbors, and that's it, you know. Thank you for letting me to speak.
And thank you for speaking. That was brilliant. Thank you. Does anyone else would like to speak over there? No? Fantastic. Oh, go on, Councillor Morris.
I just want to know that the stuff minusing littering of what I spoke about in off-sale premises, I'd like to know that my previous submission is accepted and it isn't struck out, because it does actually relate to what I did submit.
Yes.
Thank you.
Do members have any questions of the interested parties? Councillor Jones. Councillor Jones.
Shall I ask this to the residents, yeah? Yeah, okay. So, as you say, you've lived there for 14 years, and you know, quite rightly, you want to coexist with Cara. You see no reason why they shouldn't be trading. But obviously, of late, you say there's been a lot of issues in regards to, should we say, antisocial behaviour. Would you say outside? Would it be the noise coming from Cara at night? What time does it stop? Do they have the roof open, for example, and music's played? Could you just give us an indication of what, you know, you're going through? Thank you.
So probably in the last few months, while opening has been closed at 11 o'clock, I would say, yes, it is noisy up to 11 o'clock. And there is an element of that I can understand. Families that have got younger children that are trying to sleep, it can be difficult. Beyond that, I would probably argue myself that, yeah, when it's midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, it can be a real problem. But we have to accept that, do you know what I mean? You do have a business, there is a business there, it always has been a business, and so there has to be a tolerance with the fact that we've owned houses that live on a road where this business has always existed. So we take an element that there is always going to be an element of noise. However, in my notes that you'll see on page 46, that the restaurant has been expanded way beyond its capacity. So in its past licensing, when it was a Chinese restaurant, it never had the capacity to house the amount of people that it now houses. And that has come with its further issue that those people can't park in the car park because there are far more covers now than there ever has been, and it's completely overpopulated, which is why they've needed to get retrospective planning because planning wasn't granted. So we've had to get to retrospective. So basically, we've applied for planning permission. We haven't got it, but we've done it anyway. And then we've gone for retrospective planning, which is a point, which is it's a shame that the planning committee are not here to actually do that, because this was a point that was brought up in the planning meeting. The car park extension, do you know what? It needs it. It absolutely needs it. But even that car park extension is not enough to house the amount of covers that come for the restaurant. And that is a problem that you can argue that you're an enemy of your own success. Is like the restaurant is successful, and I get that. But the problem is the clientele that you bring with it are a problem. And antisocial behaviour comes with the antisocial clientele that comes with it. And that's not the owner's fault. That's not the staff's fault. They can only do so much. And there is an element here of the staff of the car are not going to go out in the car park to handle antisocial behaviour because it's not them causing it. It's the clientele that bring it with them. And the only way that you can control the clientele that come there is by closing the business at a suitable hour that then stops that from going on for local residents. And unless anyone is prepared to put in a management process for the clientele that attend, valet parking, organising parking elsewhere, organising people coming and going, then there's very little that you can do about it. And that's my key point, that I think there is an element here of it has to coexist. Like, nobody wants to see someone's business close. Life is difficult right now. Do you know what I mean? Life is difficult for a lot of people, and nobody wants to see a business fail. But the other problem is that life is also difficult for the residents that have lived here for 14, 15 years, that have to get up every day, that pay our taxes, that pay our council tax, that put everybody here in a job to make sure that we represent our community. And right now, we're not representing our community. We're letting people do what they want when they want, and we're not taking into account the residents or the people around it.
I think you're being very understanding as a resident. To be fair, you know, the way you talk, you're not saying you want this closed down or anything like that. You want to see a business, a successful business, which it is, and that's good to see in Thurrock. And you know, so just what was it like before? You've been here 14 years. I've read in here as other residents, it's been here 20 years, 25 years, and they all say the same. So it was okay then, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say I've seen 3 generations of owners through this business, and yeah, from 210 BC, the Oriental, and I've seen the development of the business. And at the end of the day, I think anyone just wants to succeed in what it is that they're doing. And do you know what? I think there's a right way and a wrong way to go about it. And I know with my own business, I see with other people with their businesses in this local area, that it's tough. Do you know what I mean? It's tough to make a difference, but there is a gap where businesses come along and they take advantage of certain. I'm not going to say as a legal loophole. I don't want to get in trouble legally, because what I think there is an issue is that people prey on the fact that there is no current enforcement coming from Thurrock for planning infringements. The same thing that we had in the planning meeting. There's no one to enforce the problem. No one's coming out to tell these guys that they need to change their parking or to change their car park. And we're at a point where if no one's here to do anything about it, what are we doing here? Why are we here as residents? And I think, I know even a lot of people in our residency here have got points they would rather see the restaurant not be here at all. They'd rather see that there's no licence granted. They don't want a restaurant here full stop. But there's an element, you can't hinder someone's commercial ability of something that was here. It just has to coexist, though, to a point that it is fair. It is fair for the business, and it is fair for the people that surround it.
And I thank you for that. And a question that I'm going to ask both yourself and the applicant: what do you feel we should do to what could happen next to coincide the residents and Cara Lounge?
That you grant them a licence until 11 p.m. and that they continue a bit like it has been now for the last 2-3 months. I personally would say, and I know not everyone's in agreement, because there are instances. I think about a week ago, we had someone in a Lamborghini revving their engine up after closing hours, and I think pretty much everyone had left the car. There was pretty much no one there, but the gates weren't shut, people hadn't left, and do you know what? That's probably one incident in probably the last 2 to 3 months. Since we've been closing at 11, it's not really been a big issue. It really hasn't been. And I know there's a lot of people still going to complain about, because we've had people parking on driveways. There's been local disturbance, but there's been a limit as to how much that disturbance is. I do get there's a lot of people not happy over parking, but a licence till 11 p.m. isn't going to change the parking. That isn't going to make any difference. But the difference is beyond that 11 o'clock, it is antisocial. Like if I went to anybody's home now and I started barbecuing and playing loud music until 2 in the morning in your back garden, that's antisocial. That's not acceptable behaviour. And there's an element, if you wanted to have a party in your garden, that there's a time that it becomes acceptable. And there's also a time that it isn't. And I think that really needs to be accepted here.
And have you made any complaints to the environmental team?
We've pretty much made all of our complaints via local council, and the licence, there is a noise complaints team that we've sent them into at Thurrock Council. At one point, I believe Councillor Shinnick was the unfortunate recipient of constant evening messages, videos from the car park. These are all outside of hours. These are all recorded outside the hours of 11 p.m. These are all showing visible evidence of lights, antisocial behaviour, even a gentleman urinating, walking down the street. I think we've had one knock at a door for a cab, rung our door at about 1 o'clock in the morning trying to get a cab home. And I know it's not the restaurant owner's fault. Whose fault is that? Whose fault is it at 1 o'clock in the morning that a drunk and disorderly gentleman rings the doorbell of a neighbouring house for a cab? But the restaurant owner isn't in control of that person, are they? It's the client that attends. But the reason it's a problem is because the client is attending and he's drunk and disorderly outside of normal hours. So at 1 o'clock in the morning in a residential street, it's not acceptable. And that's the point, is that we can't argue. It's not all a restaurant owner's fault. You can't argue that everybody's representation comes down to the owner of a restaurant. But the fact is, there is a tolerance and there is an acceptable moral standpoint that you need to take, that your behaviour can only be controlled in the parameters that you get given. And if you take away the time frame and you take away the parameters that they're given, they can't be antisocial anymore.
And Councillor Shinnock, can you just confirm that it has been passed on through the correct procedure at the council, what you've been given?
Yeah, I can confirm that.
Thank you. Councillor Morris Cook, you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, I think and just really going on the back of what the resident says, I do believe that what the residents are asking for is limited back to the 11 o'clock, plus the owners actually taking ownership and responsibility. I do disagree with the resident when he says it's not the owner's fault where someone is drunk. I'm sorry, they are. They shouldn't still be serving someone that is actually intoxicated. That is part of their licence agreement. And they do need, I don't see any ownership or responsibility being taken by the owners. And I think they really do need to come to the party on this and start waking up and getting some organisation in their restaurant.
Thank you. Councillor Fish.
Thanks, Chair. I think your evidence has been very helpful so far in building up a picture of what it's like to live in that environment. People are referring to antisocial behaviour. Would you say that's mainly to do with noise that's inappropriate at that particular time?
Yeah, I would probably say noise is probably the biggest issue that a lot of people have. I mean, in the summertime, I know there's been a lot of complaints. Rather, there is a removable roof on the restaurant, which was obviously never there before because those covers was always inside the building. So when they had live events and music, it wasn't an issue because the doors were shut, the music is contained within. What's happened in the summer is that the roof is off, the music then continues till late, therefore it's much louder. It's a constant issue. In terms of the noises that then come without it, clients leaving at late at night, it's very difficult to leave. If you drive a sports car, it's very difficult for you to leave anywhere quietly. And if you was in the car park of Lakeside and you was in the middle of a car park with thousands of cars heading out to a main road, do you know what? You're going to be just as noisy, and it's not really going to make a lot of difference because there's nobody there. But when you're no more than 20 feet away from someone's bedroom window and it's 11 o'clock or it's midnight or it's 1 o'clock in the morning or 2 o'clock in the morning, can you imagine that when you've got your windows open, it's a hot day, you are literally sitting in a car park. There is no two ways about it. That is difficult. I think in previously, it is groups of people come and go. People like to leave the restaurant and they say their goodbyes in the car park. The other issue is that because of the parking, that car park sprawls out into the street, and that street is becoming blocked, and then they sprawl out onto the neighbouring driveways. And that's not been the first time. I think it was February, it was Valentine's Day, I think 2023, where I came home from work. I drive a van, I try and get that off the road. We live in a private cul-de-sac of 5 houses. We couldn't get in because the cars had parked all the way along the pedestrian footpath, blocking the residents' driveways. You physically couldn't get in, and I had to go to the restaurant in order to get people to come and move their cars. And nobody was interested. And they wasn't interested until I offered to remove their vehicles personally. And those are the issues.
Councillor Jones.
So when in the summer the roof was removed and music was playing loud, up to what time, and did you put in a complaint?
Yeah, that was when we involved the noise complaints team, where we was calling and sending in emails for reporting those.
Thank you. If there's no more questions from the members, does the licensing officer, Paul Adams, do you have any questions of the interested parties here today?
No questions from me, thank you, Chair.
Oh, thank you. And now, does the applicants, do you have any questions of the interested parties?
Yes, please.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So my first question is for Mr. Hall. So this is specifically in relation to you and you alone. How many, in the last year, how many times have you called Environmental Health? Because obviously Environmental Health keep a record of your calls and logs. So how many times have you called in the last year to Environmental Health to say, for example, to complain about music noise?
Well, you don't complain to Environmental Health. We've complained. There's a noise complaints team at Thurrock Council.
So how many times have you complained to the complaints team at Environmental Health or the noise team at Thurrock Council in the last year so they'll have a record?
Yeah, I don't have that record with me because I didn't think we was coming for a legal representation of it. However, what I would say is it's been more than 2 to 3 times. We've got correspondence on a first name basis with the guy. I'm trying to find you the email so I can send it in. It's probably helpful.
So you say about 2 or 3 times in the last year?
Yep.
Thank you. And then the same question, please, to the gentleman from 11 Fleming Road. In the last year, how many times have you called the Environmental Health or the council system?
I didn't call. I've done complaints which through the email. I don't really know exactly to who. I just know I told them. I can forward the emails or I can print the emails.
So in the last year, how many emails have you sent?
Uh, Same, 2, 3.
Thank you. And in relation to Councillor Morris Cook, Councillor, how many times have you contacted Environmental Health about any noise complaints, please, in relation to this premises in the last year?
I haven't, because I'm actually not the local councillor for that ward, so it wouldn't have been appropriate.
Thank you. Can I then ask Councillor Chinook, could I ask you how many times in the last year have you contacted Environmental Health?
The noise complaints, not environmental health.
Yeah, I have sent in several complaints through members' services, and I can't offhand say how many times I've contacted environmental health or noise complaints off by hand at the moment.
So, member services, so roughly in the last year, how many times have you contacted member services about this
Several
premises?
times.
What, 2 or 3?
No, 7.
7 times. And those 7 times, was it to do with the same complaint or 3 or 7 different types of complaints? And what were they to do with planning?
I don't think planning comes into this tonight, does it? I have had complaints on planning, which we done at a planning meeting, and I did speak up on that at the time. But I thought we were here discussing licensing tonight and not in a court of law.
No, I understand. Through you, Chair, I'm just trying to understand that the councillor said she's written about 7 times to member services. I'm trying to understand, was that about one particular complaint, one particular issue? Trying to understand what that is, because obviously there'll be a public record, but if the councillor is doing casework, just want to try to understand what was that issue or issues about, please.
Right, regarding noise, antisocial behaviour, car parking, and I can go on, but I think you'll be feeling quite offensive about some of the stuff that I've complained about regarding Cara Restaurant, i.e. cutting the wires to the flats so the cars can park into their section as well, and people can't access in and out the car parks to get to their car parking spaces where they live in the flats.
You're not suggesting that Cara has cut some wires to someone else's building, are you?
I'm saying there is record, I've been told of things like that.
Okay, so can I ask, in relation to those complaints that you've made about noise, antisocial
I'm
behaviour?
sorry, this is getting out of order. I'm not in a court of
asking
law.
cross-
This is a
I'm not
licensing
asking
matter.
Can we?
cross-examina- Well, Mr. Chairman, can I just say that the councillors have asked lots of questions, and that's fine. And some of the answers went on for some time, but I've got a recording of all those questions. I'm just merely trying to.
Can I just remind you, sir, if we are actually on this is being live streamed, so if you are recording, it's actually on the live stream as well, so you can get that as well.
No, I've got it independently. It's a transcription, so it's easier. What I'm attempting to do is that obviously the councillor, I think your vice chairman said that the evidence that you've given is very helpful. He said, you yourself have commented that you understand your colleague there said very understanding of the residents, very helpful. So, I mean, you yourself have been listening to the residents and made those comments. And what I'm trying to do is understand the evidence, because if the councillor has complained to member services 7 times, I'm trying to understand what those issues are and what the responses were from environmental health. So, for example, if a resident has said, I'm disturbed by noise, she refers it to member services. Did they investigate? What was the outcome? And I think that's fair and reasonable to ask.
Can you give me, hold it for 2 moments, please? Sorry, it wasn't a question about you. Continue, and you continue with your questions. Councillor Shinnock, the gentleman is entitled to ask his questions. The gentleman is entitled to ask his questions. So can you please answer the best of your knowledge, please?
I've answered to the best of my knowledge. I do loads of casework. I can't remember each individual thing I send in regarding the CARA. I can go back to my laptop and call it all up, but I haven't got it with me at the moment.
The resident would like to come in. Is that okay? I will let you continue with questioning. The resident just wants to ask a quick question. I'm going to let him. Go ahead. Go on.
I just wanted to make the point that, generally speaking, that the councillors do their work via social media in our local areas, door knocking, things come through our letters, and our point of contact is advised to be our local councillors. So in the most point, most people will go to the most available contact, because I know myself, trying to submit something through the council and getting a response, the timeframes in which you get these responses are not instant. And in the environment that we are all now in, social media tends to take the first point of call, and people publish their complaints and their concerns online whilst tagging in their local councillors and making them aware. So if we wanted to say how many emails we've had a response back from environmental health, I know myself, when this first started out and there was issues, you could put maybe 2, 3, 4 emails before you'd ever receive once a response from Thurrock Council. However, you could see through the vast majority of residents, there are countless complaints being submitted to their local councillors via social media, directly or message.
You will get a chance to summarise and understand what you're saying. I think can you switch your mic off, please? I think the gentleman's just saying, are you asking, is it emails or is it per case, if that, per se, if that makes sense?
Well, if you will, when you allow me, I'll continue with my questioning, and then I will make submissions when you call me to do that, if I'm permitted. So could I continue with my questions?
Of course, you would always be allowed to.
Thank you.
I think that's what he's asking, but please continue.
Thank you. So, Councillor, you said to the committee that there's approximately about 7, and I understand you haven't brought the material with you tonight for this hearing, for this case, for this restaurant. Can you tell me, in relation to the complaints, is it that residents have told you about matters arising, or have you seen them? Have you seen it, or are you just reporting what's been told to you on that 7 occasions?
I'm reporting what's told to me, and also I have seen when I've been driving past there.
And when you've reported it, has the member services or the relevant department written to you with a response?
Yeah, they always come back to you within 10 days.
And do you know what the outcome has been in the last year with any matter you've raised with them about CARA?
I can't honestly remember, because I do so many bits of casework, it's untrue. So, I'm not going to beef it up and lie. I can go back to my responses on my laptop and find out, but I can't think of them at the moment.
Okay, and it's fair to say in your representation, because I don't know, let me just check. You're a member of the licensing committee, is that right?
Yes, I am a member of the licensing committee, and I couldn't sit on it tonight because
of course. So thank you. And
conflict of interest.
Yes, I understand. I'm just understanding. So just want to make sure that I understand the position. So, in relation to your representation, you've had 28 days to which to make a representation, and that you've had the opportunity and the experience of sitting on the licensing committee. But in relation to today, you haven't brought any primary evidence, any emails, any of your casework. You've not provided that as evidence before the members tonight, have you?
This is true. I've only sat on one licensing committee, I think, so far, and I didn't know I was going to be in a court of law tonight. I just think I was reading out my statement, what I submitted.
Councillor, I'll come back to the comment, but have you had training as a member of the licensing committee here at the council?
Yes.
Thank you. I have no further questions. Thank you.
Thank you. I would now like to ask the applicant to present their case. One moment. I'm going to call a quick 5-minute comfort break. Can we please go into break? Thank you. Be able to present
Sorry,
their
Chair.
case. Can I just bring?
It might be helpful, actually, for something that the solicitor was asking.
Is that, go on. We bring you in later.
And it was just answer to a question he asked earlier that we weren't able to answer. I've now just got some information.
Is that okay with you? It is your turn.
You were asking for numbers.
Well, it is my turn to speak if the council wants to do it later, but I think it...
Okay.
Well, I thank you for your helpfulness. But this is the point, I think, Mr. Chairman. I think that the applicant comes here and it feels very hostile, to be quite frank. And this gentleman and his wife are employers within the borough. They have a restaurant. They're doing business. They're doing business lawfully and in a proper manner. And we should be able to come to the council, be heard, and also to be treated with respect and fairness. And I'm not suggesting you've treated us any inappropriately, but I'm just saying I ask for fairness. For example, I hope that all members of the committee will keep an open mind, even at this stage. The reason I say that, and I don't raise criticism, but I'm just saying it's all about action. For example, with some of the answers given by the residents, Ms. Chairman, you said that's brilliant. Thank you very much. So that gives an impression of someone that's made their mind up, and I ask that you keep an open mind. It's just language, but it's important. I know that your colleague, Councillor Jones, may be a misunderstanding, but he said it's very understanding. It's very understanding of you. You seem very reasonable as residents, but you haven't heard from us yet. And your colleague, these are just a couple of summary of the points, but your colleague has echoed something very similar, which I wrote down. Yes, very helpful evidence. And if you say to me when I finish that similar marks, then I expect the residents will make a note too. So the reason I make that is because I'm saying please keep an open mind, and that I'm going to make representations here about this premises. Now, firstly, the starting position.
Can I just answer something, please?
You don't have to answer. I'm making representations. So.
Good.
Sorry, I'm making representations, and you may disagree with me, but I'll make them, and then it's up to you to decide. If you want to stop me, that's fine. But I'm not asking for a response. I'm just making representations. So if you want me to stop, I'll stop, or may I continue?
You may continue.
Thank you. So it's about public perception. The public are watching at home. My client sits next to me, and it's just saying, look, please keep an open mind. And I'm confident, now what I've just said, that you will be saying to me, I'm going to keep an open mind, and thank you for that. Now, in relation to this application, as any application, it has to be judged on its own merits. And that any decision you make has to be based on evidence, as you know. The test is on the balance of probability. Is it more likely than not? But there are rules in relation to what information can be placed before you and what weight you attach to that evidence. So in relation to the representation, they're written in advance, and we normally get them 10 days before the hearing. So we've had that disclosure, and we've had that, and I've been able to prepare. As you can see, I've prepared. But obviously we've had a lot more information this evening, but I've not heard before. I'm not asking for an adjournment, but What it is that, for example, I asked the councillor, who is a member of your committee, have you had training? Yes. So he's fully aware of the process and procedures. And have you brought any of your evidence regarding your casework regarding these premises, and have you submitted it to the committee beforehand? So that would be fair. She has knowledge, experience, training, and the answer to you was no, she hasn't. And that's the point, is that whatever is said, what weight can you attach to that? That representation is not, that information and evidence is not in the pack, not in advance, and not disclosed. And that would be unfair for us. Your legal advisor will be saying, well, actually, that's unfair for the applicant. The councillor knows the process, it should be included. And the reason why I'm hesitant about or challenging the weight of that evidence is because, one, it's not been disclosed in advance. It's been said for the first time this evening. But also, if there were complaints to the environmental health or to licensing or to a community safety or to member services or to councillor or democratic services, whichever channel it may take, we know that environmental health, noise pollution, antisocial behaviour, the team within the council has not made any representation. Now, the case of Daniel Thwaite was about a case of evidence. It has to be evidence-based, your decision. But it's equally important for members to note and to record in evidence that your own environmental health team have not made any representation. And that is significant. That has considerable weight. The police service have not made any representation on crime disorder. And you'll be aware that under the statutory guidance, which you must have a regard to, says that the police are the main source of advice in relation to crime and disorder, including antisocial behaviour. The police have not made any representation, and that is important too. And that goes the same for the licensing authority. Now, your licensing authority also could have made representation if they're aware of any complaints, any antisocial behaviour, any matters arising regarding undermining the licensing objectives. They would be duty bound to raise an objection. They haven't. And that you must have regard to. Now, obviously, under the statutory guidance at 9.12, I'm using Patterson's 2004, it says each responsible authority will be an expert in their respective field, and in some cases likely to be a particular responsible authority. And then they say that licensing authority, main source of advice in relation to particular licensing objectives. The police should usually, therefore, be the licensing authority's main source of advice on matters in relation to crime disorder. And then it goes on to say similar in relation to environmental health, etc. It does say this, that anyone making a representation, because the burden is not on us, as the applicant, we're entitled to a licence, but we're only stopped by that entitlement if someone makes a representation, and then your discretion is engaged. So if there were no representations, we'll have it granted automatically. But because representations have been made, it means then the maker of those statements bears the burden, in effect, to satisfy you on the balance probability that there's going to be an undermining of the licensing objectives. So it remains incumbent, I would say, on those that make representations that it can withstand the scrutiny which it will be subject to at a hearing. So, you know, when you asked, and I asked, members and members of the public questions about their complaints in detail, it's quite vague. And, you know, it's okay to do general and give a general statement, but when we're actually faced with some scrutiny, you say, okay, well, how many times have you made a complaint in the last year? What was that about? What was the detail? What you would be concerned about, I expect, troubled in some sense, is that that's not in the written representation that they had 28 days to make, and that they're making it now, and it's very difficult for us to respond to, but also, where is the statement? And you'll have that in your mind that actually environmental health haven't objected, the police haven't objected, nor the licensing authority. Where's the evidence? Where's the logs of the complaints? Where's the emails of the complaint? Where's the emails to the councillors? Where's the councillors' emails to councillor services or committee services, or whatever it may be as a service in this local authority? Where's the responses? Where's the outcome? The reason why I say this is because there can be more than one reason why someone is disturbed. So, for example, a gentleman says that he was knocked at the door at 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm sure he can recall that and remembers that. But who says that there's a causal link between that occurrence and our premises? There's a bar down the road near Tesco, open until I think 3 a.m. There's a railway line that's run, trains run till 12:30, and people could walk from there up the road. So what I'm saying is that if people make complaints and they are drawn to our attention, then we can look at that to see if there's a causal connection between what's complained of and us. And I can tell you we've had no complaints raised to us in the last year about someone knocking on a door or antisocial behaviour. We've had some issues regarding discussions around car parking, and obviously I'll address you on that in a moment. But in relation to antisocial behaviour, nuisance or crime, we haven't. We've had the noise team come out and measure our music noise, and they say there's no issues here, no concern. They've been out to measure. Environmental Health have been out in relation to our extractor system, no issue. We have not been served with a statutory noise abatement notice in relation to pollution or noise, not at all. There is no public nuisance. So the point I want to make is that you have to decide your case on, or this case, on what the evidence is before you from the residents. What have they said? And does it come up to proof? And does it come up to the standard of proof that you would need to be satisfied to deny us, in effect, our licence, or the licence? Now, in relation to the history of the premises, sorry, actually, what I'll do is I'll just want to talk about the area for one moment, and then I'll go on to the history. The road is obviously quite busy, we say, and it is a busy road. The railway station is just down the road, Trafford 100, and the railway line is just behind the restaurant. So when we talk about people returning to a car, someone says, well, it feels like it's a car park in our bedroom. Well, do they think that it's a railway line? I mean, trains pass frequently on the track, and it's elevated, and you know it's how it goes. The noise from the overhead cables, the electric cables, is quite loud. I've stood there, and the cables are very loud noise. The road is very loud, and the railway track is loud. So I want to just set the scene that there are a number of activities going on. It's just not us in some leafy suburb somewhere and just purely residential. It's not. I mean, I know that Mr. Hall has said that he has lived at the premises for about 14 or 15 years. But when he came to the premises, and the other residents, because I think the other gentleman that spoke came in 2021, because obviously you can check public records of when they moved in and out of the properties. So when they came, they were aware that there was already an existing restaurant, and that premises was licensed to 2 o'clock at weekends with an extension of an extra hour on notable days, as well as weddings and other functions. So it was an additional hour on weddings and corporate functions events. So it could trade all the way Monday to Saturday till 3 o'clock on those occasions if it needed or wanted to. You asked the question, I think, at the outset, and I think the officer answered. from the licensing authority, are you aware of any complaints in relation to this premises whilst it had that license, which only lost its license about 3-4 months ago? And the answer you got is none, and we're not aware of any. So, at the end of the day, up until then, because of a technical issue, the license lapsed. But it's a technical issue. Now, that technical issue can be undone. It takes about 6 months, and the license would come back. So that license is able to come back if we needed to. Yeah, but hopefully this should be a simpler process than doing that process. So we've obviously given the council an opportunity to hear the application, and hopefully we'll get a license granted as we wish. But what we would say is that the technical issue is that when the applicant applied for the license to transfer, he made it in his personal name and also in the company name. So in effect, there's some confusion. So when the company changed over, he thought it was in his personal name, not the company name. And that's where the administrative error came about. So no criticism of the local authority. It was an administrative error. That's why we are where we are. So we're trying to correct that administrative error. But rather than saying, well, actually, we'll go back for the 2 o'clock and the 3 o'clock, actually, there was a pragmatic approach to say, well, actually, ordinarily we close at midnight, everyone gone by midnight. That's when we normally close. But occasionally, we might need the 1 o'clock. So let's just go for the 1 o'clock, everyone gone by 1:30 as a practical solution. And then the additional 1 hour on the New Year's Eve and notable days. So that's why an application's been made in those terms. So it's actually it's less than the existing license that had no complaints. Now, in relation to, I don't know where you're thinking, but I want to give a bit of history on restaurant licenses. Firstly, this is not a nightclub. I know you've heard submissions on that. It's not. It's a restaurant. And there's a restaurant condition about alcohol and ancillary food, except from, I think, a limit of about 20 persons. So it is food-led. People come and go to the restaurant over an evening. They don't all leave at once. The car park, with the lights of the car park, there's a wall. It's probably a metre or so high. So the lights would shine onto the wall. They don't shine outside of the car park. And the lights within the car park are no brighter than the lights that are on the street that light the road. So we say that's how that is managed. Now, in relation to restaurants, under the old 1964 Act, and I think it's relevant for you to note, restaurants always were permitted to midnight with 20-minute drinking up. Historically, restaurants don't close at 11. Yeah, they've always, since 1964 and now, always at weekends, Friday and Saturday, been midnight with your drinking up time. Drinking up time's gone, but generally it's accepted it's 30 minutes. Now, obviously, I'm not suggesting that you do that, but I just want to put a marker down that restaurants do not typically close at 11 o'clock, that you won't have a business. We're asking for the 1 o'clock. Generally, we do close at 12, everyone gone by 12:30, but obviously we want the 1 o'clock, so in case of those occasions when we want to go slightly later. But all I would say, Chair and members, that it has to be evidence-based. It can't be driven by emotion. It's got to be fair to us so that we can respond to questions. We say that people are well-mannered and behaved in our premises. We have no breakout of noise, nuisance or noise. Environment Health have been very satisfied when they have come. We've had no complaint from them, no noise abatement, no letters of complaint from Environmental Health, and that there's no representation from Environmental Health. We've had in the last year, we've had no letters from any resident directly to us, and certainly I'm not aware of any letters from the councillor to us. So we have to just say it as it is based on the evidence that you have. In relation to general going to restaurants, people come to celebrate a number of events or just going out for a meal. And we people go and leave in an orderly manner. They're not. You've all experienced leaving restaurants. It's completely different from leaving a pub or a club, and we encourage people to do that in a responsible way. We do actually have a car park steward. We do have someone that looks outside and keeps things in good order. We do that. I mean, I think one of the residents said, well, they don't go out and they couldn't interpose or interfere with people leaving. Well, actually, we do manage that, and that's why we don't have any complaints. That's why no one's come to us to complain. So, in relation to that, I think I will leave it there and leave it to you to ask us any questions. But I said I would be fairly short because I think our evidence is that we have been responsible in the way we run and operate our premises, and that the hours that we seek are reasonable. We believe we have promoted the licensing objective for a number of years without any complaint, directly from us or any responsible authority, and we ask that the license be granted. Now, you may say, well, why then do the residents object? And it may be, because obviously I've been trying to find a motive or an understanding. It may be that they did like the Chinese. They did like it because it was quiet. It wasn't really doing much. And, you know, I think it used to close at 10 o'clock. However, yes, this is a restaurant that is there. You can see it. It is busy. And maybe they just don't want it. But that's not a reason. And in relation to the question about off-licence and need, you will know the statutory guidance says that need is not a relevant consideration. So I'll stop there. Thank you. Any questions, please?
Thank you. I will now ask the members, do they have any questions of the applicant? I'll go first, if that's okay. Do you agree that restaurants and the community should work hand in hand with each other?
I don't think it doesn't just apply to restaurants. It applies to, I think, any business, and no different to this business. So we should be working with our neighbours, absolutely.
Out of fairness, I said I'd ask you this question. What can we do right now to coincide this restaurant with the local community? Because there seems to be a divide here, and I want to know what your views are, how we can coincide the two together.
Well, that's a difficult question for me to answer because I will answer it, but it's difficult because the legal answer is that you should look at the evidence, weigh up the evidence and make a decision accordingly to that, and that you are guided by law and guidance, and you have to make a judgment based on what you hear. Now, the case law says that it's an evaluation, so you have to evaluate what is going on. So that's your role. It isn't my role to tell you the outcome. My starting position is that you should grant the licence as applied for. Are you saying to me, well, where's the middle ground between you, which you might be asking? The middle ground might be, and I think it would be wrong, but the middle ground is to grant the 12 o'clock, everyone gone by 12:30. But I think that would be wrong. But I'm just giving you a candid answer. It would be absolutely wrong to give this premises any less than midnight and 30 minutes based on the evidence, historical licensing hours for restaurants, and given its location. So I've given you, I think, a very candid, and I might get tapped on the shoulder by my client, but I'm giving you a candid answer.
And thank you. And can you please clarify what you meant? You took the option of doing this instead of the 6 months option.
Because this is cheaper and quicker.
Thank you. Councillor Fish, you got any questions? Councillor Jones?
Thank you, Chair. Um, is it Mr. Dads?
It is, Councillor Jones.
Are you the same Mr. Dads that's got on here your position in business is partner and solicitor? Is that right? Are you partner in this restaurant?
No, I think you've misunderstood. I am a barrister and solicitor and partner of the law firm, Dad's LLP.
Right, okay.
But not...
Nothing. So you're nothing to
no,
do.
I'm a licensing lawyer.
Right. Okay. Thank you. So I'm going to say the same to you. You put it over very well. What I was saying to our resident up there was I felt that he wanted to live in co-harmony with yourselves. He don't want to see a restaurant closed down. He's a resident. He's been there for 14 years. Sometimes you can say with a business is that if someone moves in and the business is already there and it's thriving and they complain, then realistically they've got nothing to complain about because the business was already there. So, you know, I'd like to... So my question is, like when we do training, if you like, we do it with the 4 objectives in mind.
Could I answer that question? Sorry.
Yeah, go on. Yeah.
So, look, I think we're not in planning, but it's the same principle. It's called the agent of change. I mean, we have been there, and if someone comes, you know, they know what the environment is that they're in and the circumstances they're in. And you might say, for example, I'll give an example. You might move next door to a pub that's fairly quiet, and it might then change its tenancy and becomes much more popular. But the thing is, when you move next to a pub, if you know it has a license to 2 o'clock, then you know potentially it could trade to 2 o'clock. The point I was making is that every resident that's here has come after we have been there with a license to 2 a.m. in that location. That location has been approved for many years. I think more than 15 years, possibly 16, to those hours. And I'll just leave it at that.
Do you have an entertainment licence with this premises?
It has an entertainment licence under the old legislation lapsed. The premises licence includes the provision of regulated entertainment.
That for, say, duos or a band or just a DJ, what clarification has it got? Because there's different levels, aren't there?
Yes, we up to 11 o'clock it's deregulated, as you're aware, so you can play live music up until then. After that you require a licence. Generally we play recorded music. We very rarely have live music after that. But in any event, I can say we have never had any complaint from the council, as I'm aware, certainly in the last year anyway, I can say that, of any noise breakout from within the premises that's caused a public nuisance.
I went past there the other day and you say, obviously, the building, it looks fabulous, it really does, but light pollution for residents there, you know, would you say that that's a bit over the top? You know, is there a way that screens could go down there to give them some form of privacy where light is not glaring into their premises? It's a question.
Yes, it's a really good question, and I want to answer it. Could I just ask you, though, just to clarify a point, are you talking about the car park or talking lights from the building inside or lights on the building outside? So there's 3 points: car park, lights inside, lights on the building outside.
No, I'm not going to car park at the moment. I'm talking about the building as a general. If you drive by, I would say, look, it's fabulous down at, you know, South End seafront. The light pollution coming from the building is quite prominent. And so I just wondered if there's ways you could put screens inside. Inside, it doesn't matter what you've got, but that's showing right across the road to the residents where they live. They're right in their front rooms.
Well, can I say that if there was an issue, I stood there. I've done the same as you, and I've stood there, and I accept the point that it is. You can notice the building. It has a certain style around it. But can I say that there's a glare from it that I get from my stand on the footpath? No. If there was light pollution, the Environmental Health, your council, can easily deal with it with noise, with an abatement notice under the Environmental Protection Act 1990. So there is other legislation to do it if they believe that light is causing a nuisance. But if you look at the street lights, they are just as bright and they go onto the street. I stood there, that was my view, you may not agree. In relation to the lights outside the building, it has a certain colour around it, and it might be that some people subjectively don't like it. We have had a discussion about trying to see if we don't need as many. So we are prepared outside of this meeting to have a discussion with residents to maybe look at our lighting and see if we will reduce it slightly. And we don't want to put curtains or blinds so people sit there, they're not looking out. But I will say this too, that will only, when you walk along the road, there are some residents do have high hedges, some don't, some are set back quite a way. So it's not clear cut that it would necessarily affect. It might be it's a personal opinion that they don't like it. It might be that they think it's like Southend Seafront or Blackpool Illuminations, but that's subjective. And that's not grounds under Licensing Act to refuse. But I get the point, and we have talked about having a discussion. So if Mr. Hall or one of his neighbours want to have a chat about that, we're quite happy to try to facilitate something. And I know that Mr. Adams or his team would probably welcome such a discourse.
Yeah, that's all it was. A little bit of harmony with residents, understand their issues, you know, and
Yeah, I get it, actually.
yeah.
And just to let you know over there, we will be bringing you can ask your own questions. You'll have your own question time. The members will have their questions now, and we'll bring you in a moment. Councillor Fish.
Sorry, I can't do anything about that, I'm afraid. You will be able to hear me. You did concede in your evidence that there were issues about car parking and that you'd had discussions. Can you say a bit more about what those discussions were about and where they actually went?
Yes, well, we know that time back, the people within the flats complained about potential customers blocking that roadway or the entranceway. Now, we've had no objections from anyone within the flats, I hasten to add. What we did is that we acquired an extension of the land, put hardcore down so that there's an extension of, I think, about 16 extra spaces. So that's how we resolved that. And we believe that we do have adequate car parking. In fact, we're going to look at it further because the spaces that we have with the lines are very generous, and we believe we might even be able to get another 5. So at the moment, the local authority, planning authority, have granted us an extension to the car park with additional spaces. They've also asked us if we would change the lighting so it faces the railway bank rather than the other way. And so we're working with the council to undertake that work. But they said that they had, as a department, checked with the council's antisocial behaviour team and with their own records and not noted any material complaints or any matters arising of antisocial behaviour or any other matters. And that's of the public record.
Councillor Jones.
Yeah, I just wonder, what was the idea of putting the roof in?
It just, it's an outside area that we would have normally, and it just, for inclement weather, so that it has a cover, so there's some seating outside. But we don't, but there's no noise breakout from that area in the sense of recorded music or anything like that. And if there was, I mean, we'll say it now, and I invite your officers to come down. If there's noise breakout for that, they can deal with it like that, just serve a noise abatement notice. It's as simple as that. So the reality of it is, if either the councillors here or you go by and there's a noise breakout that they believe can be heard in someone's home and disturbing them, the council will just serve a noise abatement notice. That's it.
Any more questions? No. Okay. Does the interested parties got any questions? Councillor Morris Cook.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm interested to know, and I'm sure you do know this, that Cara should have submitted plans for screening and lighting, mitigation to reduce for noise by tomorrow. So there is record that there is clearly an issue with lighting and obviously screening for noise, and their plans are meant to be submitted to the council by tomorrow. So I'm surprised you hadn't mentioned that.
Well, Chair, I'm not going to get into planning, but can I say I did watch the recording of the planning, and that even the planning officers, I think that members were not aware that actually there's a wall within the car park of a certain height that the lights can't shine through, and I think there was a misunderstanding of that. Obviously, they asked for screening and planting within 3 months, so that would need to be discharged. But that's a planning matter, and I'm not getting into planning. And as I would remind the council, I think the council knows too, that under the statutory guidance, that the licensing policy should indicate that obviously planning permission and building control are separate from licensing, and one should avoid duplication and inefficiency.
And Councillor Morris Cook.
I'm more than aware of that.
Can I just
what
come in,
I was
please?
saying was...
Can I just come in, please? Sorry.
No.
I'm sorry, we've reached a time where I'm going to have to extend standing orders. I'm going to read this. I would like to move a motion without notice to suspend council procedure 11.1 to allow the meeting to continue beyond the 2.5 time limit until end of business. Agreed? Yeah. Councillor Morris Cook, sorry.
So I was aware of that. I thought it was actually quite helpful just to say that this was about noise and screening and lighting. There had to be plans.
Have you got a question, Morris, Councillor?
No, I was just clarifying a point.
Have you got a question, Councillor Shinnock? Yes, please. Thank you.
I was on the planning committee when you put the car park in place before you got planning permission. I am right by saying that,
Councillor Shinnock, can we please keep it to licensing? This ain't planning.
No, you're right, Mr. Chairman, that the planning and licensing are separate regimes. You will not make a determination based on whether we've applied retrospectively or otherwise for planning. Obviously, it is a public record that we applied retrospectively, but that's not unlawful, and actually we've done that in the correct way, and officers have recommended the approval. Members of the council have considered it fully and made.
You don't need to answer.
Grant. Thank you.
Don't answer. Planning will not be coming into our decision.
Thank you.
It's the 4 licensing objectives, as you previously said. Any more questions? Sir, go ahead.
And hopefully keep that brief. My only real questions are keeping it away from planning and all about licensing. One of the things that you mentioned is that the license was already permitted when it was the previous restaurants, the previous businesses. So my question is how many covers have you expanded the restaurant by since the previous license was granted? So you had a restaurant of a certain size that's been expanded massively from what it was originally to you now have far more covers now than ever was possible in its previous 2 generations of 2 different restaurants since the license was permitted.
Simple answer, Chairman, that the premises is licensed and tables and chairs, unless they're fixed, don't have to be noted, and you can arrange your capacity and covers as you wish. So at the end of the day, it's not relevant in that sense. If I want to only have 100 covers in a restaurant, or if I can get 140, that's a matter for the restaurant, how they set the restaurant up.
But so in my question there, that is it 140? Have you expanded by an amount? Are you twice the size of what you was before? Is there therefore twice as many people here?
Mr. Chairman, sorry, I didn't use that figure in relation to us, but I was just giving it as an example. I think from when it was the Chinese restaurant or Pan, and now for us, I think we've got an extra 20 or 21 covers, but that's it. But one has to bear in mind also, it's how you do the bookings. So, for example, we do our bookings in certain slots so that there is a moving in covers. So it may be that the Chinese restaurant might have 3 sittings or 2 sittings. So the amount of covers is not necessarily indicative of how many people you have and how you manage service, because you don't put all your bookings at 7 o'clock. Of course, you stagger it so that the kitchen can manage the orders. So even though you might have that maximum capacity, you manage your sittings accordingly so that the service can be delivered throughout the night in a number of ways. And you may most restaurants do try to get 2 sittings, but it depends on how you manage your business. So just a pure arithmetic on how many seats you have is not necessarily how many customers you have.
So on that question, just so I understand, because I'm not a restaurateur, but so what you're saying is, if you had, as a complete example, 100 covers, if you're arranging your visits in time slots, then you could well have far more people waiting, as well as people waiting to leave simultaneously. So therefore, the capacity of the car park, the road, and the surrounding people could be far more than what you've actually got seated in a restaurant.
We have sufficient car parking for the needs of our restaurant. Thank you.
Go ahead.
I would say so. That was rather subjective, isn't it? Because that depends. But anyway, I suppose my only other question, you mentioned about the people that have made complaints, and you mentioned reference to the council's records of complaints that come in. Do you hold a record of all of your own complaints that you've provided to the council as well? And can that be verified by any other third party? Because we can hear a lot of questions over stuff coming up for who's been submitted to the council, environmental, noise pollution, but can we actually verify that nobody has been into the restaurant to make a complaint? Because I find that hard to believe, having physically seen people do that.
We don't record, or certainly not then, we don't recall records of visits into the premises. But what we are saying is that we've not had any complaints from this gentleman or his colleague, his neighbour, directly to us. We haven't, nor either of the councillors. We do have a system that's being rolled out called Licensing Connect that keeps a record of matters, and that's being rolled out at the moment. It's something that that I'm working with the premises to implement, but that's up and down the country. We're rolling it out. I think we've got about 150 users at the moment. It's being tested, but and that will keep records like that in the future. But certainly in relation to us here, the burden is not on us, it's on the residents. But we've answered that we've not had any complaints directly to us. We're not aware of any. Licensing aren't aware of any. Planning authority weren't aware of any. And none of the responsible authorities have raised any objections. And they would be duty bound to do so if they felt that this application undermined the licensing objectives.
Thank you. Councillor Shinnock.
I was asked a question earlier about complaints what have gone in regarding the car restaurant, and from June till September, Councillor Hartstein's put in 7 complaints. I'd just like to highlight that, because I was.
I can't, that's not a question to me. I think that's a statement, and
You want to continue? You got anything else? No, I just want to make sure. Any more questions?
I have a question. You said that you had a team who measured the noise of the music. Uh, how do you measure the noise from the car parking? Because a lot of the noise is coming from the car park. People going to the cars and they spend time in the cars, like young couples, they stay in the back of the car and they kiss, they listen music, you know. This is the reality, you know, because I can watch from my windows and I see the people spending lots of time in the car park and doing a lot of noise. Did you measure that noise?
Firstly, the visit that I mentioned was from Environment Health about the music noise. Obviously, I know, and I've heard previously that someone has raised an objection of someone being in the car park when we are closed. So at the end of the day, it is our car park. I don't believe we lock it, do we?
We don't look it, but we have a 2 security
Yeah,
elements.
yeah, okay, yeah. So we don't have a lock on the car park, but obviously if someone comes along and wants to canoodle in the back of the car in the car park and we're not there and open, it's not really. I think that's beyond somewhat our control. But certainly we will work with the neighbours if they have certain questions about that, and we'll see what steps we can do to secure the car park when we're not trading. But obviously, I'm not committing to that as members. It's something that we can look at. It was raised in the planning, and that's why I was aware of it. And I looked at the planning meeting last night online.
Thank you. Emma, could you take us into a 5-minute comfort break, please? I'm just going to take a quick 5-minute comfort break. Thank you. Has any of the residents and the councillors got anything else to ask the applicant? No. Thank you. I'd now like to ask the licensing officer to summarise their case.
Thank you, Chair. I don't think there's anything I need to say. All the information is contained within the report. You obviously heard the verbal submissions from all parties tonight. I think you should have regards to the guidance and just draw your attention to particularly sections 9.42 through to 9.44, which are very relevant in relation to taking in consideration on a case-by-case basis all the representations received from everybody, applicant and all the responsible authorities and other persons, and that your determination should be evidence-based and justified as being appropriate for the promotion of licensing objectives. But I think obviously in your deliberations it would be worth reminding yourself of that guidance. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Paul. I'm now going to ask the residents and councillors to summarise their case, and I'm going to allow all 4 of you to do it, unless one of you want to do it. I'll let you all 4, that's no problem. Councillor Morris-Cook.
Thank you. Really, it's everything that I said in my original submission, that my concerns are the parking. I do understand what the solicitor across the way was saying. It was actually his opinion that the car parking is sufficient. There is no data to prove it actually is. I do have concerns with the noise. I have concerns with the parking. I think it's unnecessary for a restaurant, which is what it is claiming to be, and actually it is a bar and restaurant, needs to go past 11 o'clock for its licence. I think that is more than adequate.
Thank you, Councillor Morris-Cook. Councillor Shinnock.
Yeah, I back what Councillor Morris-Cook says. I think a restaurant, having a licence past 11 o'clock at night is not right. And regarding the car parking, it's a major problem. And hopefully the lights will be sorted sooner rather than later. Tomorrow? All right.
Thank you. Mr Hall, would you like to summarise?
Yeah, I would say that, look, I don't know whether this was a legal point that it was made that the restaurants will get licensed to 12 p.m. and closing 12:30. But at the end of the day, I'm kind of in agreement. I think that that's the right thing to do. At the end of the day, if that's the licences that are available, the restaurant should get a license. It should have a license. You can't deny it a license, but at the same time, it is a restaurant. It is in a residential street. If it's 12 and it's 12:30 closing, then so be it. I think that's perfectly reasonable within the letter of the law of if other restaurants are licensed to 12 and 12:30, then that should be the case.
Thank you. And Radmin, would you like to summarise your case?
Sort of agrees with the same point.
Okay, thank you. I'm now going to pass over to the applicant, and please, would you be able to summarise your case?
Yes, I'll be very quick. I concur with your licensing authority officers' comments regarding the statutory guidance, the evidential test. You'll have great weight to the point that the responsible authorities have not raised any representation. Both councillors are experienced. One is a licensing committee member. They don't bring any of their casework or evidence of complaints or history of any complaints before within the 28 days or here at the hearing tonight. And I'd ask you to treat their evidence with less weight because of that and because of fairness. The complaints that they raise are on behalf of other persons, so it's hearsay, and in fact it's double hearsay. So actually what weight you attach should be less, following the principles of East Gwent. Patterson's licensing law actually says it's actually a question of whether you should give it any weight, given that the maker of the statement is not present. In relation to the comments made by the council regarding the parking is a separate matter under planning that's been dealt with by planning. We've added additional spaces, and there are some steps to take to remedy some of the concerns raised, and we voluntarily said that we would do those things. And you've heard some of the submissions about having some regard to the maybe looking at the gate and locking the gate, or seeing what practical steps can be made because the gate needs to be open for people to come and take waste away. But we'll take that away and have a look at it, see if there's anything we can do. And the same goes for the lighting, although I don't invite you to do anything because I don't believe that their licensing matters directly linked to the licence work activities that we do and undertake, and certainly not light pollution, public health. In relation to the Mr. Hall comment, the point regarding what would typically be under the 1964 Act for restaurants and what is normally the de minimis position for restaurants, typically, in my experience, and the law then, is that that's the minimum. And in 2003, so the 24th of November 2005, under the Licensing Act, it got deregularised. In fact, it sort of opened up, and you didn't have restaurants, you didn't have the off licences and pubs and clubs. It became a licensed premises. And this premises has been licensed for nearly 15 years to 2 o'clock without any complaint, without review, without any issue. We're only here because of a technical issue. So I ask that you have great regard to that, because under the transition periods, under the transitional period from the 1964 Act to the 2003 Act, where people didn't transfer in that window, which was, I think, the 6th of August to the 24th of November, when they didn't transition because they forgot or didn't know, which is quite surprising, but some people did, the law was very clear that you still had regard to the licence that was previously permitted or allowed. And I think that's the same here. You should have regard to the fact that it has been licensed for 15 years or thereabouts with those 2 o'clock hours. And that should also weigh into your decision, or notwithstanding that the application is for a much lesser hour. I just leave it on that point that it is up until now, very recently, without this administrative error, there was never any enforcement action, no written complaints to us, no discussion about any action from the police, environmental or licensing. This was running without cause for concern from the responsible authorities. And obviously, we've given, in effect, oxygen to it by making an application, but I think you have to look at the evidence, and sometimes people just don't want that change or don't want it there, or might not like the lights, might not like it's more popular, but that is not a licensing objective. And we say that we do promote the licensing objective by the evidence of actually our trading period without any cause for concern or any complaints raised with the responsible authorities. Unless I can assist you further, I ask that the application be granted as applied for. Thank you.
Thank you. Has everyone said what they wish to say? Thank you. The subcommittee will now retire to consider its decision and will be accompanied by the clerk and legal advisors to the subcommittee. But given the time, we will end the meeting at this time, and a full decision will be communicated within 5 working days. The committee feels this is appropriate so that sufficient time and consideration be allocated to its decision. And with that, I thank everyone for attending this evening. That concludes the business of the meeting, and I now declare this meeting closed at 20 to 10. Thank you.